I almost canceled that date 3 times. Not because I was nervous, because I didn't think it would matter. At that point in my life, I treated dating like a side quest, something you fit in between work deadlines and gym sessions, something you showed up with, a clean shirt, a rehearsed smile, and low expectations. I was 32, working in a marketing firm downtown. Long hours, decent pay, predictable routine. My days were structured, efficient, optimized. I liked it that way. I believed control was the same thing as stability. And if I'm being honest, I thought I understood people. I'd been on enough dates to know the pattern. Small talk, career talk, travel talk, maybe a joke about modern dating. Then either a polite, let's do this again, or a mutual fade out. It felt like a system, and I was good at systems. Her name was Maya. We matched on an app I barely checked. Her profile was simple. No dramatic captions, no filtered beach photos. Just a few normal pictures and a short line. Trying to stay curious. That line stuck with me for some reason. Still, I almost canceled. Work had been heavy that week. I was tired. My brain told me it wasn't worth the energy. But something in me, maybe boredom, maybe habit, said, just go. So I went. We met at a quiet coffee place on a Thursday evening. The kind of place with warm lighting and uncomfortable wooden chairs that try too hard to feel authentic. She was already there when I walked in. She looked normal, calm, no dramatic energy, no overdone effort, just present. We did the usual handshake turned awkward half-hug dance, and then we sat down. The first 10 minutes were exactly what I expected. Work, family, the city, traffic, shared complaints about overpriced rent. She listened carefully, not in a performative way, just quietly attentive. At one point, I remember thinking, she's kind of hard to read. Usually I can sense the rhythm of a conversation, when someone wants to impress, when they're insecure, when they're bored. I relied on those signals. They helped me adjust. But with her, there was this slight delay. Not awkward, just thoughtful. I'd say something and she'd pause half a second longer than most people do before responding, like she was actually processing it. It unsettled me more than I expected. Then, about 30 minutes in, something small shifted. I asked her what she did for work. She said, I work in hospice care. I nodded casually. That must be intense. She smiled gently. It can be. And then she stopped. Most people in difficult professions immediately soften it. They joke, they minimize, they pivot to something lighter. She didn't. She just held the space. I remember feeling an unexpected discomfort, not because of death, but because I realized I had no idea how to respond beyond surface-level sympathy. So, what's that like? I asked. She took another one of those thoughtful pauses. It's quiet, she said. Mostly quiet. You spend a lot of time sitting with people who know they don't have much time left. She said it calmly. No drama, no heaviness in her tone. Just reality. Something in me shifted slightly. I spend most of my days in urgency, deadlines, notifications, performance reviews, strategy meetings where everyone acts like the world will collapse if an email goes out late. And here she was, describing a job centered around the end of someone's life, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I felt small, not in a bad way, just recalibrated. I asked her what people talk about when they know time is short. That's when the evening changed. They don't talk about what you'd expect, she said. Like what? They don't talk about money or titles or the promotion they didn't get. She gave a faint smile. They talk about moments they missed, or chances they didn't take, or people they wish they'd forgiven sooner. I remember looking down at my coffee cup. I had spent the entire week stressed about a client presentation. I'd replayed one awkward comment from a coworker over and over in my head. And here she was, telling me that at the end of life, none of that even registers. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a lecture. It was just information, but it landed hard. For the first night that night, I stopped thinking about whether she liked me. I started thinking about what I was doing with my own time. Then she asked me a question I wasn't ready for. What do you think you'll regret if nothing changes? She didn't ask it aggressively. It was soft, curious, but it felt like someone turned a light on in a room I'd been avoiding. I laughed at first. That's a big question for a first date. She shrugged slightly. I guess I spend a lot of time around big questions. I could have deflected, I usually do. Humor is my default shield. But something about the way she asked, no judgment, no expectation, made it hard to hide. So I answered honestly. I think I might regret playing it safe, I said. I've always picked the stable option, the logical one. She nodded, like that made perfect sense. And is that working for you? She asked. That question sat between us. I realized I didn't actually know. My life looked good on paper. Stable job, nice apartment, decent savings, clean routine. But I also felt slightly disconnected, like I was observing my life instead of living it. That realization scared me more than I expected. The rest of the night felt different, less like a performance, more like a conversation. She told me about sitting with a man who spent his final days apologizing to his brother over the phone, about a woman who kept repeating stories about her childhood dog because those were the memories that felt safest, about how when everything falls away, people just want to feel understood. Not admired, not envied, understood. At one point, she said something that I still think about. Most people don't need advice at the end, she said. They need someone to witness their life. That word, witness, stayed with me. I realized how often I listen just to respond, how often I measure conversations based on how interesting or useful they are, but I rarely just witness. About 2 hours in, I forgot this was a date. It felt more like a quiet mirror being held up to my assumptions. I walked her to her car afterwards. The night air felt different, sharper, clearer. We didn't kiss. There was no dramatic spark, no cinematic ending. She just smiled and said, "I'm glad you didn't cancel." I froze slightly. "How did you know I almost canceled?" I asked. She shrugged slightly. "Most people do. We're all tired." I laughed. But as I drove home, her words kept replaying in my head. We're all tired. Not just physically. Mentally tired from proving ourselves, from curating our lives, from chasing things we assume matter. That night, I sat in my apartment without turning the TV on. I thought about the way I measure my days, productivity, efficiency, progress, but rarely presence. I thought about the risks I didn't take because they weren't guaranteed, the conversations I kept surface level because depth feels inconvenient, the way I assume I understand people after 10 minutes of talking to them. And I realized something uncomfortable. I treat life like it's permanent, like I'll always have time to be braver, kinder, more curious. But the people she sits with every day don't have that illusion. The turning point wasn't some dramatic confession. It was the quiet realization that my perspective had been narrow. Not wrong, just narrow. I had built a life around avoiding discomfort, avoiding uncertainty, avoiding emotional risk. But discomfort is where depth lives. Over the next few weeks, small things changed. I started asking better questions. Not, "What do you do?" but "What matters to you lately?" I started calling my parents without multitasking. I stopped obsessing over minor work conflicts. I noticed when I was rushing through moments that didn't need to be rushed. Nothing dramatic happened, but internally, something recalibrated. I stopped assuming that success automatically equals fulfillment. I stopped assuming that other people's calm means they're simple. And I stopped assuming I have unlimited time to become the person I want to be. Maya and I went on a few more dates. It didn't turn into some sweeping love story. We eventually realized we were in different seasons of life, and that was okay. Because the real shift wasn't about romance. it was about perspective. She didn't try to change me. She just answered questions honestly. And in doing that, she exposed a hidden truth I hadn't wanted to face. I was living efficiently, but not intentionally. There's a difference. Efficiency asks, how can I optimize this? Intention asks, why am I doing this in the first place? That one date forced me to confront the psychology behind my decisions. Was I choosing stability because I valued it, or because I was afraid of failing publicly? Was I staying surface level because I didn't care, or because depth requires vulnerability? Those questions still follow me, but now they guide me instead of threaten me. The biggest lesson I learned that night wasn't about depth. It was about attention. Where you place it, how you spend it, who you offer it to. At the end of the day, perspective isn't something you read about in a book. It's something that quietly shifts when you least expect it. Sometimes on an ordinary Thursday, across a small wooden table, with someone who pauses before they answer. And ever since that night, whenever I catch myself spiraling about something small, I ask one simple question. If this were one of my last months, would this matter? Most of the time, the answer is no. And that answer brings a strange kind of peace. Not because life is short, but because clarity is rare. That date didn't give me a new relationship. It gave me a new lens. And sometimes that's more important. So here's what I've been wondering lately. What if the people we almost cancel on are the ones holding the perspective we didn't know we needed?